So what's with the clock then? Did somebody just take it down to change the batteries or?
We'll just have to get a new one.
So what?
Here are people that are,
Oh, on at home on Zoom?
yes. All right, I'm gonna start at 11:20.
So call the meeting to order. It is July 20th. And it's 7 o'clock. On behalf of the Rush Zoning Board of Appeals. Ethan, we'd like to
problem.
welcome you here tonight, and if you could sign in at the table over there, that'd be great. Shay, could you please take the roll?
Member Glacker.
Here.
Member Hetrick.
Here.
Chairman Hart,
Here,
member Cusi,
Here?
member Spalding.
so we posted an agenda for this evening, which was primarily the public hearing, and then a status update from individuals on the educational activities that they have done to fulfill the New York State requirement. At least for tonight's agenda, any changes at this point? Okay. Well, I would like to announce the public hearing.
Let's do the approval of the minutes first.
Oh, okay, fortunately you read these things.
Yeah.
So, the minutes were distributed and there were no comments or changes back on the minutes. So I would like
I make a motion to
Motion.
approve them.
okay, Shay, would you?
Member Glacker,
Aye.
member Hetrick.
Aye.
Chairman Hart,
Aye.
member Cusi,
I,
member Spalding.
So,
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
thank you.
Second.
Second.
Application 2023-3Z by Ethan and Samantha Erickson requesting a 22-foot variance for above ground pool that has already been constructed. The property is located at 8802 West Henrietta Road and is zoned R30.
Ethan, do you have anything that you would like to say about the application before we talk about it? If you want to come up and.
Unless there's any questions, I think that I put, when I wrote the letter, I explained everything, what was going on. That's the only place I can put the pool, due to a septic. That's the, you hear me? Is it on? Yeah, that's the only place on the map, if you look at the map, that's the only place I can put the pool because there's septic on the other side of the house. And there's agricultural land behind the house. And then in front of the house, obviously, I can't put a pool out front, kids running around and going in the road. Outside of that, my cousin Matthew is here, he's the property owner of the agricultural land that surrounds my house, all three sides. And he's the neighbor on the other side of that agricultural land, he lives over there. I have a letter written from him, he's here, in the letter. I included the letter in there, but I have a signed copy of it as well. And he's aware where the pool is. He doesn't have any objections to the pool. You feel free to ask him if you like. That's his wife Carrie is there too. And then there's no other neighbors around. Just across the road, and across the road is their daughter. So it's kind of a family farm. There's nothing, nobody around. It's not impeding anybody. And that's all unless there's any questions. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you'd like.
Rich and I went and looked at it. Okay, you gotta really look for it to find the driveway because it sets back so far. And it's like you said, it's all farm fields around it. And like I said, I didn't see any problem with it. It's all farm fields around it. No other neighbors to worry about or whatever. Nothing to do if the pool was to burst, it would flood. The water wouldn't even make West Henrietta Road. And stuff like that. So that's what I observed anyway.
And one of the things, because it's an above ground pool and if it were to burst, it would go into a culvert. The water would go into a culvert that's there. I thought about whether it could go into the backyard at all, and if it were to burst, it would potentially damage the foundation of the house, actually, and which was not something that was ideal. When we initially went there, I thought that the back area, which had not started to sprout yet, really, at that point, which was, almost 4 weeks ago, it looked to me as though it was potentially wetlands. Well, and then I looked again and it's farmland. So,
And that's, and in addition to that, just a reminder that that's his part.
Yeah.
It's not
right.
some distant neighbor or somebody that I don't know.
So Rick, you bring up the variance from the house as far as, if the pool collapsed or whatever, it would damage the house.
That was in the back. If it
So
was in
what-
the back. And
oh, okay.
and the side, if it were to burst, because it's lower than the house level, it would go into a pre-existing culvert that's there. Which would not damage anything really of significance. There might be some water that would go into the immediate farmland, but I don't think that that's an issue.
So there wasn't a setback requirement from the house foundation.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I give this letter to you now?
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah. Actually, if you give it to Shay.
Go ahead.
Are there other considerations for alternatives that wouldn't require a variance besides moving the pool? For example, did you consider acquiring a little bit more land so that you had a buffer around the pool and you could enjoy that whole area rather than?
Well, so the way that, if you look at the map, there's yard behind the house. This is kind of offset off the side of the house. So there's yard behind the house. As far as acquiring more land, purchasing more land, you mean, or?
Well, somehow making, moving the line so that the variance wouldn't be needed.
Yeah,
Is that a
so-
possibility?
At this point in time, it's not. We just applied for this house and we built the house. So we're kind of out of pocket right now. So we really don't have the funds to purchase any more land now.
I had another question for the board, really.
Mhm.
In the resolution, it mentions that it's not a permanent structure. That there's no permanent. What is the significance of that when we're considering, in general, and we're considering the variance?
I think that my comment or my piece related to it not being a permanent structure is having observed these. At some point, it will probably be taken down. And so it's not like an in-ground pool unless you fill in the in-ground pool like we had with the Sweezy residence.
Right.
Where the people before filled the in-ground pool in and forced them to build a new pool, basically. I think that the discussion about permanence or temporary, I think that's a discussion that I'm going to forward to Scott Strock as part of the code committee in the larger scheme of things.
Because the variance, if a variance is issued, it's permanent, is that right?
Only for the pool.
Only for the pool.
He takes that pool down, he can't put one.
Only
back
for
up
the
in that
above
spot
ground pool and not for any pool.
Yeah, it can only be for that.
For that pool. It's like the shed that we did. That shed's removed. He can't put another one back in that spot. It's only for that. If the pool's gone and they want to do in whatever, they got to come back for another variance. It's only for that, because it's a temporary structure. Like the permanent one for the pool on Boulder Creek.
Right.
Once they filled it in, that's it,
Right,
okay?
Right, the variance that was granted for that
Right,
original pool did not hold
for the new.
for the new pool. So they had to come in, if you remember, they came in
right,
and had to,
right.
so,
Right.
so the variance is for a specific item, not for kind of a general variance that
Not for
says,
any pool.
not for any pool or not for any structure that
Right.
may want
So
to
if
be put
that-
up in the future.
If that pool has a 10-year lifetime,
Mhm.
and so does the variance.
Well,
In effect, if that pool
No.
was taken down in 10 years because it's no longer serviceable, another variance would have to be acquired,
If he put it in the same spot, correct?
put it in the same spot.
So as a homeowner, though, that's a great question, David. If I had a pool, and let's say it was a 20-foot pool and it was 10 years old, and now I want to put a 24-foot pool in on the same spot. Would the homeowner realize they would have to come in and get another variance, a new variance?
Probably not. The building inspector would probably pick it up, or there's probably half of the pools in town should have variances, probably half of them don't have permits. Okay, this is something that a homeowner doesn't really realize or recognize.
If I could
Okay.
add something, sir, I actually, when I applied for the permit, the building permit for the pool. John Limbeck, he explained to me the
Right.
variance and I had no idea.
Right.
So he kind of pointed me in the direction of the variance and he explained what they just said. If I was granted a variance, I would have to get another one in the future to build a new pool. But yeah, like I said, I had no idea that there was a 25-foot line
Right,
until the building inspector told me that.
it's like these rubber ones that you see that people throw up.
Yeah,
They fill them up, they're just rubber or whatever, and they're not steel or whatever, they're not on sand or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
I
guess-
personally myself can tell you about 4 of them. Some of them are on property lines, some of them aren't even on their property. And I can almost guarantee you they don't have a permit for it.
so this is information that I didn't have when I read the code. It appeared to me that if a variance is granted for a 20-foot pool, then that travels with the land. And whether there's a pool there or not, that variance exists on the books. So that when another homeowner, it may not even be Mr. Erickson, comes along, there's a variance on the books that allows them to put up a 20-foot pool. That's my understanding, but it's
Right.
apparently incorrect.
But if that was the case, we wouldn't have had to give one for Boulder Creek.
No, I understand, and that's
That's a
separate
permanent
issue.
versus. a
Well, it's
temporary,
not
too.
really. There was a pool there.
Mm.
They had a variance for it. They filled it in. It was with that property, that pool, that variance. Okay. So if what you're thinking is then we didn't have to give them a variance, they already have one, is what you're saying. And that's not so. They filled it in, the variance is gone. Okay, they moved that shed off of Jeffords Road. Okay, he can't put another one back up. One, he needs a building permit and he'd need another variance because he has removed that.
So this variance that we're discussing tonight
Yes,
only lasts as long as that pool lasts.
correct.
Is that a fair summary of where we are?
That's my interpretation.
Right.
Amber has a different interpretation, but my interpretation is that if I were to put up. A good example would be, the people who almost bought the house that we ended up buying. Wanted to put up a big structure in the back. And they were told that they couldn't because it was gonna be too close to and this is before John was. The person who would have been talking with them. This would have been a prior building inspector. They were told that they couldn't do it. I don't think they were told that they could ask for a variance or file an appeal. But if we put one up, my impression was that, this is not from John, this is from someone previous, and I don't recall who it was. If we decided to do that, if we decided to move it or take it down or change its location, that we would have to come back to the zoning board of appeals to do that.
Did our attorney have any comment about the Boulder Creek situation, for example? Did they weigh in on that at all?
Well, I think the discussion about Boulder Creek was that it did appear that there had been a variance granted
Right.
in, I want to say 1997, I think it was,
Yeah,
for that particular pool. And that the variance for that particular, for that pool was, would it carry over to a new pool? Was
Yeah.
it necessary? And I think that our attorney said that they needed to get a new variance.
I think the attorney said that.
Well, I don't have it right in front of me, Dad. Okay.
That's an
I'm
important
pretty
point
sure.
to make.
I'm pretty sure that
Yeah.
what was indicated in communication with Robert March was that they would need to get a new variance, even though the pool was going to be smaller than the one that had been filled
Yeah,
in
yeah.
just before they bought the house.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions? Lee, Lori, Deb?
No.
Good, thank you.
I have the, did you want the letter?
If you give it to, yeah, actually,
It's the same letter, just, that's his signature and different letterhead.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.
So, we need to read, yeah, Amber,
If I can make a recommendation, for the public hearing, we need to open up to any public comment.
yes. Are there any people on,
Before we do
On the
that,
Zoom.
could you read the public notice?
yeah,
Oh, you did read it, okay.
Yeah. Are there any people on the Zoom right now? There's no people on the Zoom. So we need to read all the correspondence into the record, and so I'm gonna ask that each person up here read something. So, Lee, would you read the Monroe County piece?
Yeah. Refers to local matter.
We don't need to read all the form for this. It really, Monroe County has said that this is in our ballgame,
They refer
basically.
to a local matter. I'll even do another one.
Uh,
The Conservation Board. We have reviewed an above named application and do not find any aspects of the project significantly impacting the environment.
okay. David, could you read the fire commissioner one?
Thank you. After review of the above application, the Board of Fire Commissioners have no issues or concerns with the application as written.
Okay, was there anything else in there?
The inspector was at the property yesterday and I was asked to add the following. The homeowner is okay with using the pool water in case of a fire, as there is no hydrant here. Thank you.
Lori, could you read the letter that came from Matthew Mayer?
My name is Matthew Mayer. My wife Carrie and I own the property of 8798 West Henrietta Road and the agricultural property of 8800 West Henrietta Road. This property surrounds that of Ethan and Samantha at 8802 West Henrietta Road. Please accept this letter as my acknowledgement of his above-ground pool that is closer than 25 feet from the property line. I am aware of the pool and I have no grievance or dispute of the Ericksons having their pool close to the property line. Ethan and his family are my cousins. We do not pay attention to any of the property lines. If you have questions, please call their number. Thank you. Sincerely, Matthew Mayer.
Okay. Deb, could I have a motion to close?
Close hearing.
Yeah, close the hearing.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing. And the number of the hearing is 2023-3Z.
Okay, and can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. And Jay, can you poll us, please?
Member Glocker,
Aye.
member Hatcher,
Aye.
Chairman Hart,
Aye.
member Cusick,
Aye.
member Spalding.
Aye.
Lee, could you read the draft motion, please?
Whereas the zoning board of Town of Rush zoning board has examined application 2023-3Z submitted by Ethan and Samantha Erickson, okay, of 8802 West Henrietta Road in Rush, New York, 14543, located in an R30 zoning district, requesting a variance from the town code 120-19. And whereas the application of 2023-3Z represents a 22-foot variance from the 25-foot setback requirement for an above-ground pool with no permanent decking as set forth in 120-19 of the Town of Rush Code is described in the maps and diagrams submitted with the application. And whereas the zoning board has examined the maps, diagrams, and other materials that were submitted with the application and reviewed all reports, the comments from the town professional staff, the public, and other interested and involved agencies associated with the application. And whereas a public hearing on this application was held on July 20th, 2023, and notice was posted as required by law. And whereas all persons at the hearing desiring to speak on the matter were heard, all correspondence was read, and all of those comments and statements were considered by the zoning board. And now therefore be it resolved that the zoning board determines that this is a type 2 seeker action, which requires no further processing under seeker. The reason for this determination is that pursuant to section 617-5C 16 of the Title VI of New York Code of Rules and Regulations. Type 2 actions include granting of individual setbacks and lot line variances and adjustments. And it is further resolved that the zoning board finds that the following with regard to the 5 factors delineated by 120-68E2 of Town Code. Number 1, there'll be no undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties. The residential pool does not change the character of the neighborhood, which is rural farmland. The owner, Matthew Mayer of the adjacent property, in the letter of May 30th, 2023, and the inspection of the site by zoning board members Lee Hetrick and Richard Hart on Wednesday, June 21st, 2023, affirm that. 2, the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method, in that the property on the north side of the house is septic and the rear of the property is committed to small children, installed playground equipment, and additional crop farming. 3, the requested area variance is substantial because the proposed variance of 22 feet, which represents an 88% deviation from the 25-foot requirement of the town code 120-19. However, the adjacent owner has submitted in support the letter that the adjacent presents no issue to his property. 4, the proposed project does not have any adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. The variance will not result in any impact on environmental conditions such as drainage, traffic circulation, sight distance, noise, or other impacts. While the requested variance was self-created, this factor does not preclude the granting of the variance. In consideration of the 5 factors, the benefit to the applicant in granting the variance does outweigh the possible detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. And it is further resolved that application 2023 3Z is granted as submitted, subject to the following conditions. Continue communication with the building inspector and obtain a building permit from the building inspector. All other applicant town and building inspection requirements must be met within 1 year. 2, any change to the above ground pool configuration must be approved by the building inspector before any changes commence. The approval of applicant 2023-3Z does not constitute permission for any modifications of the current pool.
Can I have a motion?
I'll second.
All in favor or
No.
no?
Motion to approve the variance.
Motion
Yeah.
approved?
Well, yeah, he seconded before. Okay, so
Okay. Who's
Yeah.
who's,
I'll make a motion to approve the application for a variance for the pool that we talked about in number 20233Z.
Lee, you
I'll
second?
second it.
Okay. Any questions? Before we vote? Shay, can you take a poll, please?
Member Glocker,
Abstain.
member Hedrick,
Aye.
Chairman Hart,
Aye.
member Cusi,
Aye.
member Spalding.
Aye.
Thank you. You would like a copy of this? You want-
Sure, so then.
Do you have a building permit for it?
He told me I had to do this. before I
Okay,
could
yep.
grant a building permit.
Yep, so now you can go get a permit.
Yep, he's been waiting for me, so.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All set?
Yep.
All set?
I'm good.
You're good.
Mr. Lindbeck, then, all right.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep, have a good night, people.
Thank you.
Have a Good night. I'd like to say something before we move to old business. And I could do it under new business, but I want to say it now, and that is that when we get to the August meeting. There are no appeals that have been submitted for the August meeting. We will focus on improving and increasing participation of all members in the review and appeal process. And we will take a look at that. I've had discussion with the town attorney in two different situations now about that and have gotten some feedback from him and have expressed some of my own comments to him, which I'll talk about in August, which we'll talk about in August. And I think it's important that we all feel that we're participants in this process.
So Rick, you sent this and I printed out this email, you're kind of proposed for the August meeting. So how would you like us to prepare for that discussion
I'd like
amongst us?
I'd like you to think out of the box.
Mhm.
I'd like you to just think out of the box. I wrote that as just one idea. Robert suggested maybe. So Robert suggested maybe people just kind of walk up onto the property. And I suggested that I didn't feel that that was safe. That in the context of today's world, I don't feel that I am or anyone on this board is going to walk up unannounced onto a property. And I could talk about that for quite a while, I think, but I'm not going to now. So what we'll do is talk about how to have all five of us feel that we're adequately participating in this process. And we'll do that. in
This
August
this
meeting.
application was a little unique in a way.
Yeah.
Because of the distance from the main road. Okay, but I think you'll find that probably,
What constitutes a distance in your mind that's unique?
you can't see it when you
You
drive
can't see the
by.
house?
You can't see the pool in the house when you drive by. You actually have to stop and look up the
Is it
driveway.
because of foliage or just how far back it
Trees,
is?
foliage, stuff like that, as you saw in the print, okay? As being on this board for a while, a lot of that you're gonna see, you can do on a drive-by. Okay? Shed on Jeffords Road, you can drive by and see where the location is and stuff. I mean, I'm not saying you can't go up and talk or whatever. Somebody wants a setback from the center line of the road instead of 100, they want 90 because they're putting in the addition on. that's in front of the house. The addition isn't there because they haven't got a variance, okay? But a lot of what you're gonna get, you're not gonna see, other than maps and stuff. We did variances for 5 flag lots. They weren't marked, they weren't staked. You had to draw it from a map like the planning board does, okay? Yeah, I don't have any problem with everybody going and looking, okay? I'm fortunate in that if I've done enough work and lived in town long enough, I know where all these are. Okay,
I guess the question with this one was, what if that farmland was proposed to be put into building lots?
Mhm.
And somebody wanted a building lot next to where the pool line was. So would whoever applied for that lot have to make sure that people with the variance in their pool were going to have a certain amount of land before they did any build? Would it be their responsibility? Would just be their lot that they'd have to accept the variance on their neighbor's lot?
Yes,
For the
I mean-
the
Well,
length of
not
life of the
necessarily.
pool.
not necessarily, just because. Dave brought up a good point here, when down Jeffers Road, 7 feet, 10 inches. Well, what happens if somebody comes and they want 9 feet or whatever, and you say you already gave them 7? It's totally different. Each one of these is totally different. Don't look at it, I mean, you can, but don't take it as, well, we didn't do it for this one, so we can't do it for that one, or how about this one? The way I see it is you have to look at each one separately, okay? And assess it from that.
And I think that's what I'm thinking, that's your attempt to have dialogue around the fact that all of us didn't go and assess that, right? So
Mhm.
every single person needs to be comfortable in their shoes to be able to explain to any resident why we came to this decision. And if we're all not there, then we're all not, seeing the same thing or discussing the same thing. So I think that if that's what we're going to talk about in August, more about this collective independence that we represent as a jury, so to speak, on making decisions, right? So,
Yeah.
and trying to interpret the subjectivity of certain things, to Lee, your point, if every property is unique, then we need to all be very comfortable in the judgment that we're making at that time and why. And, so
I think
that
everything
that to me is what's important for how I come to a final decision.
Right, I mean, we've given variances for 1 foot in a bathhouse. Middle Road,
Where was that?
Middle Road,
Middle Road.
yeah, remember the lady came in, she was buying a house, she couldn't get a mortgage commitment because the pool house didn't meet zoning. And it was 1 foot off the property line behind Bobby Foss, remember that one?
It was in existence.
It was pre-existing, been there for 25 years, okay? All right, so I guess you would probably, you would probably say no, okay? But it'd been there for 25 years, okay? They had a permit to put it up.
I
Okay,
might not say no.
and I'm just saying, and yeah, but like I said, every one of them's different, okay? You couldn't see it, one of the neighbors didn't even know it was there. They knew they had a pool, but there's a hedge there, okay? If you wanted to, we could have made him put up pine trees around it or whatever, okay? The one on Boulder Creek, we could have put in the variance and said, no swimming or pool party after 10 o'clock. Okay, you can do that, okay? Their neighbors didn't send a letter in support of it, but they weren't here saying no either, okay? I guess I kind of look at it, these are our neighbors, okay?
The thing
Well-
that gave me pause on this one was that I'm looking down the road 20 years and the farm next to it is subdivided. And so, and if it's correct that the pool only, the variance only lasts as long as the pool does.
Yep.
That's not a problem 20 years from now. But
Amber, you're shaking your head.
Variance runs with the land.
that was my,
Not with not with that. So if they were gonna put another 20-foot pool in that exact same location, all they need is something.
yeah, that,
For these people,
Right, and
Okay.
the reason the in-ground pool did was, we actually went to the building inspector and when we pulled up the permit, the new proposed pool was slightly different
Mhm.
location wise
Right,
than what
yep.
the variance was given.
but with the setback, it's the same?
No, it was slightly different. and the
Bigger,
size it-
smaller, narrower?
I don't
think it was-
recall, but-
It's slightly
but
smaller.
if it, but.
The new pool was slightly smaller.
If it was the exact same location, same size.
No
all
variance
you
was
needed a
required.
Permit, because it runs with the land, I was just checking it on New York State as well. It's nothing about permanent.
So if he takes this pool down 20 foot, he can put another one right back in that same spot.
Right, which would have an impact
Right.
if
But
somebody
he,
did,
with a permit,
Because it all,
Right.
variance runs with the land, not with the property.
so that could impact future development, to Lori's point and Dave's point. If somebody wants to buy that property and put their house there, you know, that pool is,
Right, but that's not your,
right,
right?
the next one.
we don't worry about that.
It's like him and his cousin. Okay, they're kissing cousins right today, could be Hatfields and McCoys tomorrow.
Right,
I mean, so, I mean, you have to look at the letter and say, okay,
right,
the neighbors agree. It'd be no different than if two neighbors from down the street stood here screaming at us that they were objected to this, okay? Just because they're sitting here screaming, objecting to it. You weigh it, yes, okay, but then how does it affect them? I mean, that's what I look at. I'm not trying to tell you what, you know. I mean, we've been here before, people have been variants and you've had the crowd screaming at us. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so you have to kind of look, I mean, here,
What I would say about this particular property, and to put things in perspective, is that from the road, you're talking about trees in front and a football field. Pardon?
The winter, there's nothing.
Right, no, but you're talking about in terms of doing a drive-by, Amber.
Oh, the drive.
In terms of doing a drive-by, you're talking about looking at something that's a football field away. And more than actually a football field. And so drive-bys work sometimes and sometimes they don't.
right. The other thing I want to say is too, is we have 5 things to look at. Okay, and out of these 5 things, I already got 1 foot in the grave. Okay. Very rarely have I ever seen an application come in here that was self-created.
This one was already put up.
Well, then I'm just saying, but this one was put up. I mean, it was self-created, okay, but yeah, people come in, they want to put an addition on the front of their house and they need a front setback. They're creating it. So like I said, 90% of all of them that come in here is self-created. So they've already got 1 strike out of 5, okay? And the only other one, like I said, there's no undesirable change, doesn't fall under seeker, okay? Could he achieve something different? Yeah, maybe, okay, and maybe not, all right? Yeah, so like I said, if you put your foot down, say, okay, fine, that's it, tear it down, move it, we don't like it, we want it over here, whatever, that's our opinion, but for what he's got right here, so these are the things that I look at when I look at a variance. Okay, the neighbors, yeah, it does play a part and whatnot. Okay, but those are the things that I look at.
When I talked to Robert. Or emailed with Robert, I shouldn't say talked, I emailed with Robert, and I said, it really doesn't matter to me whether it's his relative. Or whether it's an unrelated person who's a neighbor.
Right,
The issues are the same, potential same issues.
right,
It doesn't matter whether I'm the person who's the neighbor or whether it's Matthew Mayer or
right,
Amber Corbin or Lee Hetrick or Dave Parker or Lori Spalding or Deb Cuse. It doesn't matter. That letter indicated that there wasn't a problem. It didn't need to say, oh, we're relatives and we don't even look at property lines. Well, the fact is that letter was a valid letter from my standpoint. And it could have been it could have been my property and I wasn't related to this person.
somebody questions
Didn't
that,
matter.
why we made that decision. 1, okay, 1, it was already there, it was self-created. But 2, there was a letter that kind of waited. If we had a letter that said no, they'd have to give a good reason for it. Okay, but yeah, that's, like I said, I look at those 5 things. Right? So simple as that, you know. So I'm not 100% sure. But when you abstain on a vote, I think you have to give a reason. I'm not sure. You can check that with the attorney.
I'll be happy to give a reason.
Okay,
I was under the impression that the variance ran with the land. That anyone at any time in the future, regardless of who owned the land or the adjacent land, could put up a 20-foot pool. And on the assurance that that's not the case, I want to talk to Robert Marks, or at least hear him say for sure, because
Right.
this may come up again. This issue of a temporary structure is important because we see some of them. And if it really does mean that that variance only lasts as long as the structure does, that casts a different light on it. And it's, to me, an important point to get Robert Marks to weigh in on, and then agree that this is what this group is going to do. We're going to agree that whatever Robert Marks says is how we'll go.
He will be here in August
Okay,
for all the discussion. He will be here in August.
so I came in prepared to vote no. And my reasons were, I'm concerned about 20 years from now, when the land next to it is subdivided and somebody's got a pool right on their fence. And I'm thinking, you know, if what I was told tonight is correct, then I'm feeling differently about that 20 years from now.
Mhm.
And so that's why I abstained. I didn't know which way. I want to hear Robert Marks before I know for sure.
The other thing, well, part of that too would be that, one, we don't know what's gonna happen in 20 years, whether it be
Right.
divided or
That's
not.
Sure, true.
And two, okay, he can come back in tomorrow. Okay, and apply for a fence permit, he can put a fence up. And does not need a variance. Okay. So
Okay, yeah.
part of that is,
Yeah.
we're given a variance for a pool, but we don't have to give a variance for a fence.
Yeah.
He can go 6 foot, as long as it's not in front of the front house setback line, okay? He could put that up, you know, I mean, that plays a part in it too. A fence is kind of permanent, maybe temporary, or he could put a hedge in and that'd be there for 40 years, you know, I mean, there's a lot of variables there,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Well, that's the way I see it, you know, there was no harm, no foul here. Now, whether or not it stays permanent and he sells the house, takes the pool down, somebody else put one up in that same spot. I don't know.
But the issue
And I
is
can't
to-
say that for sure. I was always under the impression that we gave a variance for the pool. That 20-foot pool.
The issue for the variance, though, is to protect future landowners. In this case, we're talking about speculating that a parcel might be developed. And then their foundation is so close to that pool. And then if that pool ruptured or whatever, and that water went into the neighbors, the town is responsible, correct?
No,
No? If we allowed the variance to happen, and so that's kind of where I'm getting where David's going, but you know, it's speculation, but that's our job, right? Because we would be responsible as the town if a property got damaged by a pool too close to somebody else's house, right? We're responsible
if
because
he
we
had,
passed a variance.
if he had a pool at 25 feet from the property line and it burst and flooded the neighbors, would the town be responsible?
If we granted a variance,
No, well, I'm just saying, if we didn't grant a variance, it was 25 feet from the property line, the pool bursted and flooded out the neighbors, would the town be responsible?
I thought we would be.
I think what we will do is ask Rob, we're gonna pose some of these to Robert.
Yeah,
So
that'd be great.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask everybody here to come up with their most interesting opportunity to utilize our attorney's knowledge.
Well, this is a great learning opportunity, so
Yeah,
that's why I'm welcoming these conversations, because,
yeah.
you know, I want to be able to, you know, understand why I'm making the right decision and or not. right?
Amber, when you were chair,
Mhm.
it was always two that went, saw the site, came back,
But everyone will.
Discussed it.
By or
correct,
call the applicant up. and
Yep.
talk, and-
correct. Correct.
And I know.
That's what I did. It would be assigned for two people to go and talk to the homeowner, but everybody could drive by and look at it, or they could contact the homeowner themselves, you know.
So let's move to old business very quickly. Status update on meeting the New York State education requirement for ZBA members. Lee, I know you have lots of banked already
What's
in
the,
terms
how
of the
many hours
education
required?
requirement. Yep. 4 hours a year. David, you've done,
We took that course together on the
Actually,
site prep. I have no documentation
Neither do I.
that shows that I took that class other than my receipt.
oh, the Monroe County will send that out following the second one that they did.
Right, and
And
I-
we'll send that out as a batch sometime. If it's what happened last year, it'll be sometime in September.
And that was
Basically,
4 hours, right?
yeah, and that was 4 hours.
So I've got some banked.
Okay,
Yeah, I did that 4-hour class and I did an hour and a half, the online introductory course.
the introductory course,
That's what I had.
and you did that also.
And I did the online, I just haven't printed out my certificate. And I too took the June 22nd training and they, preventing flood damage. And they did tell me that they were gonna send out their certificates, you know, later in August.
Yeah.
So maybe,
Okay,
but I did have questions regarding this training on, you know, my role on the ZBA to understand, you know, some things, but I don't know if we want to discuss that now or not.
I'd rather wait till. I'd rather wait until August.
Okay, it was just, you know,
What kind of question?
well, I just thought it was pretty interesting, you know, connecting downspouts to sewers no longer acceptable. Well, of course, we don't have sewers, so, you know, but I just wondered if that's even in our building code stuff, because we don't have sewers, but I thought that was interesting. And then the whole floodplains of the Genesee, I mean, how did Horseshoe Solar get away with drilling pylons on the entire floodplain of the Genesee? I mean, that's what they talked about in this training. And apparently New York State overrode the whole thing anyway, right?
No, New York State overrode everything in the whole state of New York on solar.
Right, so, okay, so anyway, I was just trying to decipher, and then the comprehensive plan. Is that, you know, this whole land use jurisdiction, does that address flooding? So if you change your land use, you know, in planning, does that go on record for what the property is used for? Because there's a whole lot of, you know, different requirements relative to land use jurisdiction on floodplains. And I just wondered, you know, who do you ask that question of in the comprehensive plan or zoning planning or whatever? So it was a great training. It was like, poof, you know, but you know, not very many people from the zoning board of appeals were there,
Right,
but mostly,
right.
you know, zoning board. So I thought it was very interesting. But anyway, so. I
So
think I made
some of those questions, I mean, one of the questions ought to be sent to Scott Strock with the code committee.
Mhm,
I think the first one.
yeah,
The second one, maybe. The third one to John, to
right,
the comprehensive planning committee and say, I went to this training and this is what here's a
Yeah.
question specifically. The floodplain piece, I'm not sure who that would go to.
mhm.
It's probably planning board.
That's the majority of the people that were planning.
Right. And so maybe that goes to Scott as planning board chair, not as code committee,
Mhm.
the code committee coordinator. But the first one is really a code, you know, is there something? Just because we don't have sewers now doesn't preclude the fact that maybe 20 years from now, we will have some sewers.
Right. Anyway, that was very helpful for you to send the training opportunities to us so we can, you know, really take advantage of our scheduling and things like that. So
Well,
thank you.
And I think one of the keys is that the planning and zoning pieces of this are pertinent to the zoning board of appeals. And so these are trainings that are pertinent to the individuals or to us as individuals, as opposed to training that has no relationship to what we're doing.
Right.
At least that's my opinion. So, good, thank you. So, is there anything else that you would like to bring up? Anybody want to bring up for tonight? No. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in
Okay.
favor?
Shay, you want to take, oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
Member Glocker.
Aye.
Member Hedrick.
Aye.
Chairman Hart,
Aye.
member Cutesy,
Aye.
member Spalding.
Thank you.